on Chasing Majors. Thanks for checking out today's video. It is an update video from probably the most popular video on my channel. In fact, I'm certain it's the most popular video on my channel. About 90 days ago, I recorded a video talking about the state of the market, the sports card hobby, and it was kind of on the heels of another YouTuber making a video. It was honestly more of a clickbait video that, are you ready for a bull run? Well, the reality is a bull run wasn't coming, a bull run hasn't come, and a bull run isn't coming. But many of you guys have asked me to produce or update that video, and I will share with you guys, it still is a very popular video. It gets quite a few views every single day. So let's go ahead and do an update version of that video. And yeah, let's just jump right in. Let me switch up the camera view here. There we go. All right. This is going to be mainly centered around the mindset of a collector, but if you are a reseller, a flipper, as you guys know, I do some reselling on ComC. There may be some benefit for you guys to fully understand my opinions. And my opinions really start with, are we still going to drop? Answer is yes. I'm going to share with you guys some new data that I've never shared with you guys in the past. Plus, it's data that rarely gets talked about by other people who talk about these types of sports card topics, specifically the state of the hobby, and data that drives kind of their points of view. Very few channels actually provide data. That's what I'm trying to provide you guys here. Different point of view. Some of you guys will agree, some of you guys won't. If you don't, feel free to drop a comment below. Many of you guys did on the last video. I certainly appreciated those. It was very entertaining getting an opportunity to kind of converse back and forth with quite a few of you guys. But today's data or video is going to be very data centric, and I want to talk about sales volume. Why I think the market is going to continue to drop, specifically between now and Christmas, really comes in the sales volume side of things. Today, there are still three major sports inside the sports card hobby, which really are the key drivers. If anybody tries telling you hockey, F1, wrestling, MMA, soccer, that they're really the drivers, or they're contributing as far as driving the overall sports card market, I would question them, and I have questioned them, because many of you guys actually did in the prior video share a point of view that you believed that those sports have at least a card or some cards that help drive the marketplace. In the next slide, I'll kind of contradict that point. But three big sports that still drive the sports card hobby: baseball, American football, and basketball. I went to the eBay sales data. This is data that you and I have at our fingertips. You can use TerraPeak, you can use eBay, you can go and find this data yourself. This is not some special secret sauce that I've got. This is widely available to you guys. I've just packaged it up in a way that hopefully will be a little bit more digestible for you guys. If we go back to September of last year, so 2022, and I look through the Christmas timeframe, that's these early bars on the graph that I'm showing, you're going to see that the volume is lower kind of across the board, right? So in that time frame, we sold, or eBay sold, and these are completed sales. These are not just closed transactions. There's a difference. Completed verifiable sales, that means there was a buyer and a seller. It just wasn't an auction that didn't sell and then closed. So these are total sold items across singles, trading card singles for the three major sports: baseball, football, basketball. From September 1, 2022 to January 1, 2023, the sales volume weekly in those three sports combined was 600,000 transactions, which is mind-blowing when you think about it. 600,000 cards sell every single week on average in that time period. But when we look January 1 through September 1, 2023, that's the peak season, and it's a pretty long peak season. That's something that we need to be looking forward to. The transactions increase about 90,000 transactions, about 15% total. So if we look at last year's low period, September through Christmas, we are currently in this year's low period, September through Christmas. The short answer of will we see prices go down is yes, but you have to look at the sales volume. And then you have to equate that sales volume with the price per transaction. When I go ahead and I take a look at the transaction prices, when I pull that data into the data set, it tells me that from September through the end of the year last year, the cards sold for 22.5% lower than it did in the previous period, or than it did when I look at it from essentially January 1, 23 through September 1, 2023. The irony there is in the current year, January through September, we decreased 22.5%. We've only rebounded about 13.5%. So right there, it should be telling you, red flag, we are not fully rebounding. The sports card market in the three most dominant drivers, sports, is continuing to decrease year over year, month over month, week over week. Right now, there may be stretches where it's a little bit better than others, but generally speaking, when we look at it over a broader period of time, we're still seeing decreases. Hopefully that point is fairly clear here. I do want to get a little bit deeper in this data because there's some really interesting things in this data set. Again, looking from September 2022 through September 2023. Now, this is all of September 2023. This is, again, the completed sales listings of trading card singles for baseball, football, and basketball. I like to look at the weekly averages. Baseball, the weekly average over that 13-month period of time, essentially, is 340,000 total transactions every single week. That's crazy. It's a staggering amount. When we look at the high week in baseball, it's 400,000 transactions. That happened to be June 7th. That coincides with Top Series 2. So as Top Series 2 was releasing, a number of people were putting those cards up for sale. They were getting quickly sold at decent prices, and the transaction volume increased. When we look at the low week just happens to coincide with probably the worst week in sports cards every single year. That worst week in sports cards is generally the week before Christmas. That might not necessarily resonate with everybody, but when we look over the last X amount of years, the low week generally is the week of Christmas or the week before Christmas. Now, when we look at football, the average weekly sold item totals was about 200,000 transactions. The high week at 250, the low week at 175. The high week was I think it was week 2 of the playoffs. The low week was kind of in the middle of the summer when football wasn't as relevant. Ironically, though, I believe the week before the low week, so the low week was May 15th. I want to say the week prior is when Optic Football was released, which is kind of surprising because you would assume that the kind of influence of a new product would have had a little bit of influence on the volume of sales. Generally, that's what we see, but it really just tells me that Panini has been really kind of screwing the pooch here. They're releasing the product way too late. We understand there's printing issues and and it's, I guess, no longer even worth talking about because Panini is no longer relevant in this space. But their inability to actually produce cards and sell them during the actual football season. One of the flagship products, when we look at the eBay transactions the following week after the release, it was the worst week of football transactions. I don't know, but I wonder if that had something to do with the Players Association saying, let's get out of here. Let's go a different direction. When we look at basketball, 120 total transactions is the average week over week over that 13-month period of time. The high was 150, just shy of 150,000 total transactions. That was, I think, the week before the All-Star game. Just to kind of put it in perspective, the low week was just essentially a week or 2 weeks ago, September 25th, 2023. Again, we're at the kind of the dog days of the basketball season. We hadn't really entered in training camp yet. We hadn't entered preseason basketball. In fact, I think that kicks off in the next day or so. And then we'll continue to see basketball ramp up just if we look at kind of the cycles week over week or year over year. So I do expect basketball will continue to pick up. But when we look at the low weeks, as far as total volume is concerned, they do coincide with essentially the both football and basketball. They coincide with kind of the off season, which we would expect. When we think of baseball, The off season is obviously during Christmas, and Christmas is just notoriously kind of terrible across the board. The week after Christmas, and as we move into the new year, we start seeing everything spike back up. If you go back to that earlier chart, I do want to point something out though before we switch the slide. I heard a lot of feedback. I read a lot of feedback in the comment section of the prior video of, oh, well, your data set doesn't include hockey, so you don't know what you're talking about, or it doesn't include soccer, it doesn't include wrestling, it doesn't include F1 racing. Those sports are extremely relevant, and your data set should include those. The card ladder 50 does. Cool. Matter of fact, we may do a video about the card ladder 50 and why I disagree that they even understand the cards that they should be putting in there. If basketball is the third most popular sport, why does it have the majority of the cards? That's a question I would have about the card ladder 50, but that's a video for a different day. Let's keep rolling here. Hockey, the high week in hockey for this entire 1 year, 13-month period of time was 45,000 transactions. That's half of basketball. You know what else I would point out, though, about basketball, football, and baseball? Look, the high week in football doesn't equal the low week in baseball. That's how much of a dominance baseball still has over the sports card marketplace. The high week in basketball doesn't equal the low week in football. That's how much of a lead football has as being the second biggest trading card sport. And yes, I agree. I just watched a video from the Sports Card Radio guys, and they were commenting that, modern day football is the only thing that's relevant. The Hall of Famers and the kind of old school football, vintage football isn't as relevant. They're not wrong necessarily, but football has that much of a commanding lead over basketball when we look at eBay sales volumes. When we take a look at soccer did spike during the World Cup, or as we led into the World Cup, with about 46,000 total transactions. Not bad numbers, but if you were to remove the World Cup, my estimation is soccer's high week would have been about half of what it was. Soccer's dominance isn't there from a sports card or a trading card perspective because America still dominates the landscape. Wrestling, this would be like WWE, so it's the fake wrestling, not like Olympic-based wrestling, but the WWE stuff I know is popular. It's got its own kind of cultish, cliquish group of collectors. It's a fun group of collectors, by the way. I like many of the guys that do collect wrestling cards, but the high week in the wrestling world was about 14,000 transactions. Again, that's just about a 15%, maybe 20% of the low for basketball. When we look at auto racing, yes, auto racing has been on a mediocre rise. Auto racing, this version of auto racing includes NASCAR and F1. I know there's been a lot of YouTubers, very popular channels and personalities on YouTube that really kind of pushed the F1 products. I don't know if they were getting paid to do that. I don't know if they were getting free product. I don't know if they're generally that big of collectors there. I know that the content has really kind of dissipated over the last 6 months or so. But F1, for as mediocre of a rise as we've seen there, possibly an artificial market, the highest week as far as eBay transactions in the auto racing, that includes NASCAR, is 75,000 transactions, or 7,500 transactions, excuse me. It's a fraction. It's less than a tenth of what basketball is, and it's a fraction of what football and baseball are. Again, football, baseball, basketball dominate the total transactions in the reseller market. They still dominate what collectors are buying. They are the market drivers. They are in the driver's seat. Unfortunately, hockey, soccer, wrestling, MMA, golf. I'm a huge golf fan. You guys know that. Golf. Those sports markets aren't even in the back seat. They're 3 or 4 rows back in comparisons to the big three. So when you're looking at sales data, go to where the volume is. Go understand how healthy those markets are. You want to focus on the big three. I did add the current listings. You guys can look at that. I just thought it was kind of interesting. Those are snapshots in time from when I pulled the data, which was about the 1st of October. So if you were to go look at them now, they may be slightly different. But essentially, I wanted to kind of juxtapose a point of view of what the available listings were for COMC and eBay versus the completed transactions. You guys may find that data beneficial. I know that I like to see that data, and it helps me determine, potentially what markets I want to play in, specifically as a reseller. Let's go to this graph. This is a graph that I used in the prior slide deck when I did the original video. This is a deck that represents the 9.5% year-over-year increase. And let me quickly just explain that. I went back in time and said, prior to the pandemic, what was the sports card landscape doing? And what we've seen, 2016 to 2017, the sports card market grew at 9.5%. 2017 to 2018, it grew at 8.5%. 2018 to 2019, it grew at 11.5%. We took the average, essentially 9.5%, and then we created a baseline with every year growing at 9.5%. Then we overlaid the actual data. And what we've seen is during the pandemic, we've seen the sports card market as a general 660 cards. If you haven't seen that prior video, go spend some time watching it. I'll explain it a little bit more in depth, but I'm reviewing 660 cards worth of sales data, over that time frame. And what I really seen was in the pandemic, the heart of the pandemic, we actually grew 59% above that 9.5% year-over-year increase. The next year in 2021, we grew 183%. That's the peak. From there, we've seen the decline. End of 21 into 22, we declined down to 106% over the 9.5% year over year. Remember, we're still growing in the trend 9.5% year over year. So this is above that 9.5% growth mark. As we did the video last time, as we sat in 2023, that moment in time, I made an assertion that we were as much as 84% overvalued. As we sit here today, we're as much as 78% overvalued. We've seen the market, the 660 cards, decrease as a group another 6.1%. So we're sitting about 78% above where I believe we could be. Now, am I saying we're going to come down a full 78% over the next couple of years? Maybe, maybe not. At the end of the day, we have as much as 78% that we could still see come out of the marketplace. In 90 days, we've seen that drop 6%. Now, we're no longer coming down at a deep descent rate. We're trending down slowly. Over the next couple of months through Christmas, we're going to continue to see a downcrease. Might we see a slight increase as we move into the new year? Possible. I'm not saying that we won't. Do I believe that as we move throughout 2024, the overall trend will continue down? Yes, I do, unless something significant happens, and none of us can predict that. So we are currently 78% overinflated at this point in time based upon me adding in the last 90 days worth of data from the last time that we made that last video. I did spend a lot of time in that last video talking about the Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card in a PSA 9. I just wanted to quickly pull this in. At the time of the video, that card was selling in PSA 9. It was selling for about $199.50. Between 30 and 60 days ago, it had decreased about $15 on average to $185. And over the past 30 days, this card in PSA 9 is selling for about $177. Again, I was asserting based upon that 9.5% year over year increase that in 2023, this card should have been selling right around $100. And as we move into 2024, that card would sell for about $110. So we're still about $65 overvalued on this one specific card, a PSA 9 Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card. This is a card that is absolutely iconic. It is not rare. It is not scarce. There are a gazillion of these. I did add the pop data in case you guys are interested. I also took some time to compare my sales data just of this one card. I didn't go very deep here, but I took this one card and I went to Terapeak, and Terapeak only looks at eBay data. And I wanted to see what Terapeak had the average price for that same 30-day snapshot when I pulled my data. And Terapeak was showing about $179.83. Again, Terapeak is only looking at eBay data. I'm looking at eBay data and some other major auction houses that I pulled data from. Card Ladder, which is a pay for service, they had the card listed at about $187.63, about $10 higher than I had it, about $8 higher than Terapeak had it. I'm sure Card Ladder is pulling in eBay data. I'm sure they're pulling in other auction houses. I'm not saying their data is wrong. What I'm saying is their data is just shows a different snapshot than what my data shows. I don't know how well they scrub their data. I don't know where all their data sources come from. I did look at their their frequently asked questions. They sort of kind of vaguely talk about it. What I can say about my data is it's coming from major auction houses. The vast majority of that data is eBay data. That's the reality. I do scrub my data. If there's a qualifier on the card, a miscut qualifier, out of focus qualifier, a off center qualifier, it doesn't make my data point, my data set. If the card sells in a lot of 2 or multiple cards, or it sells as part of a greater set, I move that out of my data sets. If the card is autographed, it's not part of my data sets. This is just the card as you and I would expect it in a PSA 9 grade. I also went to the Sports Card Investors webpage. I believe it's powered by his tool Market Movers, but there's a way that you can look at certain cards, like 30-day sales history of certain cards. And he had it, this same Ken Griffey Jr. PSA 9 selling for about $174.50. I'm just sharing that we're all kind of there. And so I would generally take about a 15% plus or minus deviation, whether you're looking at my website, chasingmajors.com, whether you're looking at Terapeak, whether you're looking at pay for services like Market Movers or Card Ladder, whatever you're seeing that card sell for based upon how we represent it, whether it's a free site like Chasing Majors or it's a pay for service, just estimate there's about a 15% margin of error, plus or minus one way or the other. Final thing I want to talk about before we wrap this up, we're going to be about a 25-minute video, so I'll be fairly quick here. I believe as collectors, we have an opportunity to take advantage of this current marketplace. I have rules for myself. I'm not necessarily telling you what to do. I have rules for myself. For new hot cards, Brock Purdy is tearing up the league right now. I am a reseller. I've shared my kind of journey, or I'm sharing my journey reselling on ComC. I don't want to get stuck holding Brock Purdy cards. To me, I'm cautiously buying them. If I can't get them at the right price point, I don't buy them. I'm not looking to pay full price in anticipation they're going to continue to rise. If Brock Purdy blows out his knee tomorrow, God forbid, his cards are going to go down. Wembanyama, I'm going to be buying very cautiously, not for my personal collection, just to resell. Connor Bedard, I don't really play in the hockey space. I know that he's just going to have a ton of popularity as he comes in, his rookie cards start coming in this year. For resellers, I'm just saying buy cautiously. You still have to get good price points. You still do all of your work at the buying end. The selling end is generally the easy spot. I know that there's some debate that we could have there, but for me, the buying is where you make your money, not when you sell the card. Okay, for PC cards, right now is the time to buy in my mind. Between now and Christmas, right? Your overproduced Hall of Famers, vintage, that's the stuff I like to buy. What I mean by overproduced, not the super rare and scarce stuff that very seldomly comes up on eBay. I'm talking about just your post-war Hall of Fame rookie card type collection or registries. Those are over or mass produced. There's plenty of those. They sell on a regular basis. Those types of cards right now for me are a buy as long as I am getting it below current comps. I will be making plenty of offers. I will be looking that some of these might come across as insulting offers to the person selling them. But what I'm going to do is take the data that I know that the sports card market is going to continuously trend down between now and Christmas. The volume of cards are going to they're going to lessen. The sales are going to lessen, and the price points are also going to get weaker. And so I'm going to be extremely aggressive in trying to lowball. I'll just be blunt. I'm going to lowball a bunch of opportunities for cards I'd like to add to my collection. Will I get every single one of them? No, but I'm going to also walk in with that mindset of there's always another card. I'm not going to get stuck on the fear of missing out mentality. These are the types of cards where there's a There's plenty of them in the marketplace. There's plenty of them for sale. I'm going to get the prices I want to pay. I want to pay absolute rock bottom for the vast majority of these cards. Some of you guys may disagree with that logic. Me as a collector, I only have so many dollars. I can only stretch my dollars so far. So it's imperative that I get the absolute best price for these types of cards. Now, if you're into collecting super scarce or one-offs or one-of-ones, you maybe end up paying more of a premium. Like you might not see the same level of decrease between now and Christmas. But if you're buying your typical Hall of Famers from a vintage perspective, even a non-vintage perspective, there's going to be deals out there. Stay patient. Make sure that you're getting the absolute best price for you. I guarantee that there's opportunities out there as long as you're looking to add these to your collection. Don't be a bag holder, though. If you're looking at these as investments or for reselling opportunities, there will be opportunities to buy and get really good cards for really cheap prices with the opportunity to flip those 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road. But you need to be just as aggressive as the collectors. You need to buy those cards as cheap as possible. That's what I got for you guys today. We're going to keep this one about 25, 26 minutes. I'm going to sign off in my normal way. Before I do, though, if you guys would like the journey, follow along. You guys know the drill. If you guys have any comments, suggestions, feedback, leave them below. I appreciate you guys. Chat with you in the next one.